have changed, some forever, not for better. Some have gone and some remain. All these places had their moments. With lovers and friends, I still can recall. Some are dead and some are living. In my life, I'll love you more.
Some cultures place great reverence on ancestors, both living and dead. Other, more youth-oriented cultures may display a lesser degree of veneration for elders. Many families proudly trace their lineage to the old country. But when the Newsoms trace their ancestry, they point back 2 generations and then shrug their shoulders. The family tree reaches an abrupt dead end. Since it is impossible to explore the Newsom family tree, maybe we can gain some insight and fond recollections of a few of the not-so-distant relatives that made up the Newsom clan.
Outlaws. Outlaws. It's hard for me to explain to them damn people, you understand? Well, like Uncle Joe, he was a good guy. He was the guy that knew what the hell he was doing throughout that Newsom clan. But the rest of them, give me a bottle, get out of my way. That's all the hell that mattered to anything. Lark Newsom, I think he was murdered. That's what I think. Yeah, I know by God that he was a Newsom, and I know that he dropped dead or something. I don't know, because no one would talk about it, and it wasn't all that difficult to get yourself murdered by God if you lived in East Kentucky.
I never did see Daddy's mom and dad. I barely remember my mother's mom and dad, but they lived with Aunt Evie. I can remember Grandma being at our house a couple of times. But see, back then people didn't visit that much or something. I don't know. I mean, you just didn't see them hardly ever.
Her grandmother was a full-blooded Cherokee Indian. If you looked at her, you could tell she had Indian in her. But look at me, can you tell I got Indian in me? No. I used to ask her, I say, "Are you sure?" That's what I used to ask them. "Are you sure?" I don't look like the rest of them. How come I don't look like the rest of them? She was different than Mommy in a lot of ways. Mommy was very meek, but Aunt Evie was more forthright with her, how she talked. Mommy and Aunt Lena were quiet, and you would think that they were mild. But when you got them mad, you better step out of the way. I asked her one time, I says, "Well, why did you want to go out with somebody that old? 26 is pretty old for a 16-year-old girl." Her father worked with Daddy in the mines, and he brought him home one night for dinner, and that's how she met him. Dixie was a baby, and she decided that Daddy was drinking a little more than she thought he ought to be drinking, right? So she decided she's going to leave him, and the one that told him that she should leave him was Aunt Stella. And she said, well, you shouldn't have to put up with that. You shouldn't do that. And, you know, you need to just leave him. Daddy came home and they were gone. She had only Dixie at the time. And so she went back home to stay with her mom and dad. And she said every night she'd be sitting on the porch with Dixie, you know, in the swing. And she said, I'd see Troy walking up the railroad track. And then he'd walk back down the railroad track. And he'd walk back up. And she said one night he got up enough nerve to come over to where she was sitting on the porch. And he said, now Lucy, don't you think it's about time you just come on back home? And she said, yeah, I do. You know, his father died when he was 9 years old. He was just pushed from one relative to another. So he'd never learned, you know, how to...
He wasn't one like with Harold and Jimmy. I mean, you know, to take him to a ball game or take him anywhere, really. I don't know of any place he ever took us.
You know, Daddy always, it had to be his way or no way. He was no one you could reason with, nobody you could discuss anything with. If he said that was the way it was, you might as well just shut your mouth and go on, because he wasn't going to listen to you.
He said what he had to say, and that was it, and he stopped. And
yeah, there was no arguing with him. Now, Mommy, you could really argue with her.
Yeah,
I mean, you know, you could wear her down pretty much. But him, forget it.
You remember the switch that used to sit in the corner?
No.
You didn't even use it on you.
No, I was good.
Well,
I learned from what all you did.
I was good too, but it didn't make any difference. He used it on the rest of us.
Well, remember the time I hopped the coal car?
Yes.
Yes. And I unfortunately hopped the one that the man happened to be dropping. And I jumped on it to ride to the theater. And he told Daddy that I had hopped the coal car. And Daddy asked me if I had hopped the coal car, and I said no. He said, if you tell me the truth, I'm not going to wig you. But you need to tell me the truth. So I said, okay, I did hop the coal car. And here came Eva. I swear to God, she had a limb. She didn't have a switch. She had a limb. And he told her, well, she's told me the truth, and I'm not going to whip her. And Eva started crying. He was 44 years old when I was born. So he always looked the same. Gray hair. In fact, I asked him one time what color his hair was when he, you know, wasn't gray. And he said it was light brown. But I don't ever remember seeing him any other way. Before she died, you know, she had cut her hair short, and it looked so pretty. But then she wanted it washed and fixed every week, you know. So when she was with me, she'd say, now, Sandra, we got to get my hair washed and got to get it fixed, and I want you to fix it. And when she was with me, from the time for the 6 months, June to December, you know, we would go out to eat every Friday night, and Jimmy would take her. We'd all three go out, and she really liked to go out and eat. She was a good mother. And I always said that if God gave me a choice and said, okay, you can have any mother you want, I'd say, I want the one I got.
The town of DU consisted of a single row of houses on either side of a narrow road and a railroad track. That's all that would fit within the narrow holler on Rum Creek. The valley was so narrow that the road had to go under the tipple. Founded in 1916 and named after D.E. Hewitt, the owner of a sawmill in the area, DU was a community owned by the coal company to house its employees. DU became home to thousands of immigrants and families from neighboring areas.
I was born in DU and I grew up in DU, period. I was born there and, well, I was there till I was a freshman in high school. Then we moved to Maine. That's all I knew was DU. It was a nice place to live. I mean, we were poor. We grew up poor, but I guess we thought everybody lived that way. And we lived in a little 4-room house. No, it was 5, really, but it was small rooms. And Jimmy and Harold and Sandra and I, we all slept in the same room. There were 3 beds in there. It was great. I loved it, every bit of it. I was sad when we left. And I had a good childhood there. I really enjoyed it.
I was born in DU, West Virginia, October the 21st, 1932, and I grew up in DU, West Virginia, and I lived there until 1949. Looking back on my life, I don't think I always felt this way. But looking back on it, I believe the finest people I ever knew were the people that I knew and grew up with in DU, West Virginia. Basil Fry, his mother and father, without a doubt, were 2 of the finest people I ever ran into in my youth. And then we had the Brumfield family. The Brumfield families were exceptional people. This lady that ran that family, her name was Sonny, and her husband's name was Bernie. We called him Big Bernie. He had a son, we called him Little Bernie. And then we had Frida, Joel. They were all good people, and I enjoyed being around them all the time. But Jimmy Fry, he gave up on it. He gave up on everything. He figured if you couldn't put a hook in his mouth and take it home and eat it, by God, the day wasn't worth living. That's all there was to it. He caught a lot of fish. God bless him, he ate them all. Wilma, hell, that was it. Well, that was Basil's first wife, Wilma. She was a piece of work. She was hard to handle. She wasn't hard to handle for Basil because he'd just get in his car by God and go Tomcat. Basil, he was good to people, and he wasn't mean to her either. In the final analysis, he told her to split, and she split. That was it. That's my sister Dixie, my kid sister Eva, and that's the big one sitting in the front there. That's me, James, and behind me is my big brother Harold. That picture's been in our family. Hell, it has to be in there close to 70 years, maybe more than 70 years. I don't know. Well, I was just a kid when I wasn't even in grade school, I don't think, when I took that picture. My mother always thought that was a great picture. And I think it's a great picture myself.
A DHU reunion is held every year in Logan, West Virginia. The reunion can no longer be held in DHU. In May 2001, Dingus Rum Land Company, who never sold any of the homes to private individuals, evicted the last residents, and the community of DHU was demolished to provide a stockpile area for a coal preparation plant on Rum Creek. DHU, once home to 1,500 families, now exists only as a memory.
Carnation. I'm all dressed up for the dance.
1959. The Newsom home in Taplin is probably the nicest in the neighborhood. After all, it used to be the superintendent's house. It's a roomy two-story home with a large, well-kept yard and a sun porch on the second level. The Newsoms are, if not affluent, at least doing well.
Now you change your mind, it seems. Someone else will hold my dreams. A white
Troy is a deputy sheriff now.
and a pig.
Jimmy and Eva are out on their own. Sandra is in high school, and Philip will start school in another year. The boom and bust coal market is in a bust cycle. Harold, who doesn't have enough seniority with the railroad to stand for a regular job, has gone to Chicago to look for work, while Fanny and Rick stay in Logan with her parents. Since the house at Taplin is so large, they decide to store all of their furniture there until they get a new place.
I'm all alone in romance.
I was in school, and I heard someone say there's something happened down at Taplin. There's been some kind of accident. And as we got over that, coming off that mountain down into Taplin, I could see that there was fire and no house. No house. Our house was gone. Davis's was gone. And then I looked over on the railroad track, and I saw Mommy standing over there, and I saw Philip. He was sitting on the railroad track playing with the rocks. I asked Mommy, what happened? You know, what happened? There's no house here anymore. There was just a foundation. They would come down off that one mountain, and that was a straight, flat shot through Taplin, and they would pick up speed in order not to change gears to get up that next hill. And so he was coming through Taplin at a very high rate of speed, and when Daddy pulled out, he swerved, and he hit a car which had Butch Bowman in it. Butch was out there cleaning the interior of his car, and the tanker truck hit Butch's car, pushed it in front of our house, but they didn't know if he was dead, or they were trying to get him out of the car, and they had a wrecker there, and the sparks from the chain on the wrecker ignited the fuel truck, and it just exploded. and with it went the 2 houses. So we were left with absolutely nothing. Everything was gone. I think the only thing Daddy could pull out of that house was an old bookcase. And I know it was a hard time for Mommy because she had lost all her, she kept saying, I've lost all my pictures, I've lost, everything. And it was difficult for Daddy too. It was very difficult on him.
Oh, my brother, do you know the Savior, who is wondrous, kind, and true? He's a rock of your salvation. There is honey in the rock for you. Oh, honey in the rock.
By the time Troy, Lucy, Sandra, and Philip moved to Monaville, the Mona mine has already worked out, and the boomtown days are over. However, unlike DU, the old company houses in Monaville are offered for sale. Troy is able to make the down payment on the $3,400 house with the proceeds from his renter's insurance. Conveniently, the price of the house includes furniture, as the previous residents apparently abandoned the house intact. Compared to their previous home in Taplin, the new home in Monaville is tiny, 1 story, 4 rooms, and a bath. Philip is too young to know the difference, but Sandra is dismayed at the obvious inferiority of her new home. When she protests the move, her mother tells her with a tear in her eye, "This is all your daddy can afford."
I grew up first 5 years in Taplin, and after that we moved to Monaville. I lived there from 1960 until 1979, when I moved to Columbus, Ohio.
I wasn't born there or raised there, but I spent my summers there, and it was very nice.
Everything I remember about Monaville I remember fondly. When we were there, we always went, or I always went, with the expectation of getting to play.
Played baseball, went to baseball at the school in Monaville, played that all the time. We used to play home run derby. Remember throwing rocks in the creek and hitting rocks with a baseball bat against the wall, hit them on top of the other side as a home run.
We just ran around and played cops and robbers and Superman and cowboys and Indians, and played baseball and played basketball.
I would go there in the summers. It felt like all summer. So I pretty much spent 2 weeks with Mama and Papa, maybe a week, or probably not even a week, with my Grandma and Grandpa Lester. I had more fun at the Newsoms. They were more fun. I had more kids there, or more kids hanging around with, Junior to play with, get in trouble, go up the road, go across the creek, jump on the beds, make Mama crazy. Probably the first thing I remember spending the summers there was Junior and I going across the creek to the school, and catching tadpoles and frogs, and I guess I was a little tomboy, and Mama used to always give us money, try to get us out of the house, probably. Go send us to the general store. We'd go over there and get popsicles and ice cream and bags of candy, and take the little alleyway through the yards and just kind of leaning my arm up against him, and we looked like the best of buddies. Because we were the best of buddies back then. We hung out all the time we could think of. We would just get into trouble, do whatever we could. We had lots of fun.
So Mama made the best biscuits and gravy. Couldn't beat it. Bob Evans has nothing on her. We grew up on fried chicken, cornbread, pinto beans, and fried potatoes. That's how we grew up.
Sunday, we'd half the time be at Monaville having fried chicken or chicken and dumplings or some sort of chicken dinner, or maybe vegetable soup, because Mama made the best vegetable soup, I guess, on the planet.
And we used to sit on the front porch, and she used to whistle like the birds, tell me what kind of birds that were singing, and used to sit on her glider, and she'd sing to me and hug me and whistle, and we'd sit out there when it's raining and get a blanket and cuddle up. Oh, let's see, Papa. My nickname was Poochai, and he used to bounce me on his knee and sing Papa's little Poochai to me all the time. It was pretty embarrassing when you get a little older. When I was little, I guess it wasn't so bad.
Papa used to talk to cats. And he always had a little saying he'd say to them. It went like this. Shrill, 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 pretty little thing. It's a Tom, it's a Mozan. Shrill. And he'd pet the cat, and the cat's back would arch up. Papa didn't like football. He didn't like basketball. But he liked baseball. I remember he had the earphone, and he had a little transistor radio. I remember he had the earphone in his ear, and I could hear it as well as he could. You know, he used to get mad as he could be, buddy, and the Reds got beat.
There's a high drive, left field, well hit. Back there it is, a home run!
Looked like he was asleep listening to the Reds baseball game until they would lose the game, and then he'd stand up in the middle of the room and utter some sort of unpronounceable oath and then stomp off to the bathroom.
Easter, Christmas time were big up there. Everybody come to that house because that was like the main center, everybody coming there.
Every year we had Christmas together, and that was at Mama and Papa's. And we didn't actually have Christmas at our own home until I guess I was well into my teens or whatever, because we always went to Monaville, and we waited till midnight. Sharply at midnight is when the presents were open, not a minute before. And I think that kind of got lax a little bit later.
Yeah, we couldn't open anything up until after midnight. We was always waiting for my mother to come in from Chicago. Back then, I thought that was the greatest thing in the world. Yeah. Jimmy Jets and Playmobiles, and I remember all the think toys we got, wagons, and I remember getting the little whirly-bird helicopter, had the 2 propellers on those. That little stupid tree they used to have, their Christmas tree they had the pole, had about 6 branches on it, had that stupid light that reflected off of it. I hated that tree with an absolute passion. I remember watching Flat and Scruggs and the Foggy Mountain Boys at home with my grandparents. If we like to watch the news, had to watch the news on Channel 3, had to watch Boz Johnson do the news, and had to watch Gunsmoke, Lawrence Welk, Reds Baseball, Flat and Scruggs, and the Foggy Mountain Boys. Them things we had to watch. Nothing else mattered, we had to watch that. Everything stopped when that came on. I named my son after the character of Brett Maverick. There's pictures of you and me in t-shirts. We're about 3 and 4 years old, and I got them. You're wearing Cheyenne, and I'm wearing Maverick. I've always been a cowboy at heart, baby.
For the finest biscuits ever was, get Martha White, say fries and flour. The Wahlburgers flour, Martha White, say fries and flour, hot rice blue.
During most of the 20th century, the principal export products of West Virginia were coal and people. The great Appalachian migration of the 20th century flooded cities such as Chicago with young West Virginians looking for work. By the 1950s, coal mining and other extractive industries like timbering has left West Virginia with a legacy of depleted resources, scarred terrain, and poverty. But in the northern cities, there is hope and jobs.
I was 18 when I went to Chicago, and my first job was working for Curtis Candy Company. I worked in the shipping department. My job was typing bills of lading.
When I graduated high school, she got me a job at Curtis Candy. So I graduated in May 28th of 1960, and on June 10th, I had a job in Chicago. Big culture shock. Big culture shock.
Our brother Harold came in 1959 and stayed a little while. I think he got homesick.
He missed his mommy. Truth of the matter, he missed his mommy.
And then he came again in 1961. Was it 61?
Or 60, I'm not sure.
And he brought Fanny, and he brought Rick. And I think that they drove right through downtown Chicago before they got to my house. Then he went back home again.
I think they called him back to work on the railroad, and that's why he went back.
We lived like cattle in that apartment. There were so many of us, and it was so small. I think Harold and Fanny and Rick slept in one bed. My husband and I slept in a half bed, and you slept on the couch.
So a good time was had by all. Then I worked for Curtis Candy until I was, 5 months pregnant with Valerie.
And then Harold, when he came, he worked for Curtis Candy also.
And then I got strep throat while they were there. And my dear sister-in-law, Fanny, she nursed me through that.
Did they take you to the doctor?
Yes, they took me to the doctor several times, and Fanny would bathe me down with ice water to get my temperature down, because I was really sick. Anyway, she took care of me then.
Jim used to live with us. He used to live with us when I was growing up. That was a whole lot of fun. He used to always yell at me, tell me, shut up! Children should be seen and not heard. So I was always getting yelled at by him. And then Mom would always yell at him for yelling at me.
Ford Galaxy 500, tan colored. Buddy on the car. We went up there. We watched the doubleheader of the Milwaukee Braves at that time and the Cincinnati Reds. And we saw Hank Aaron and Eddie Matthews play, and Frank Robinson, Darren Johnson, Pete Rose. We got pin flags, and I remember getting the little black and white photos of them in a little pack.
We rode that tan 65 Ford Galaxy 500 all the way to Milwaukee. Had just a good old time. I ate my first non-chili covered hot dog there and thought it was really strange.
In Chicago, they didn't have, like you said, they didn't have chili. They put onions and relish and all kinds of stuff on a hot dog. I go, what's this stuff? You know. And Aunt Sandy said to us, "Oh, up here it's called a chili dog."
Since I didn't grow up in West Virginia, but would have liked to, I blame that all on Eva. So there. It's all Eva's fault. Coming to Chicago in the first place. She came here, Mom had to follow, get a job. Mom could have stayed in West Virginia and listened to Mama. Then I could have been born and raised there, and I could have been a hillbilly. But no, I have to be in Illinois, in this unforsaken tundra of a place.
I enjoyed it in Chicago. I lived there for 21 years. That's always something stood out in my mind, and I still like Chicago.
Left West Virginia and went to Louisville, Kentucky and joined the Army. Tom Rowland and I, we wanted to go. We went to my aunt's place over in Mud Fork, Eva Bailey. She did it for us. She got the damn papers out and signed them. And away we went. I was 16 when I got to Fort Knox. I arrived in Korea in about August the 10th, 1950, and I joined the 25th Infantry Division. I was wounded just north of Mason, Korea, and it took a pretty good chunk of meat out of my left arm, upper left arm. So they sent me to Tokyo Army Hospital. I stayed a couple of weeks. And then they told me that I was in wonderful shape and said, "You're welcome to go back." And I said, "You're kidding." They said, "No, we're not." And I said, "Well, you should be." It was sometime just before Thanksgiving that we had moved up into North Korea, to Pyongyang. And that's when all hell broke loose. Every day I was either, if I wasn't walking real fast, I was absolutely running, going south, along with thousands of others. And I had not made a big mark in my career in the Army. The highest I ever got was PFC. I did have the knack of being able to drill people, drill men, so they made me a platoon guide, and I had a good platoon, and by God, about 2 months after that, right before I was ready to get out of the Army, they promoted me to corporal. And I could never understand that, because I'd been court-martialed a couple of times. Air Force, 17 years. And they added the Army to it. And when I got out of the military, I had 20 years and 18 days. But they had their rules, and by God, I had mine. I just wasn't going to do things that I didn't want to do. But I always had a good time.
Sisters
My name is Eva May. I was named after Eva May Bailey, my aunt. And I guess I'm her namesake, that is. I believe you are.
If the Newsom family has a problem, Eva is the person that we all should go to. Because she's got a lot of common sense, and she's got a lot of moxie back. She knows how to handle herself. I think she's a real catch. I really do. Don't tell her I said that.
My eldest sister, Dixie, was quite upset when she found out that my mother was going to have another child. My mother said that she could name me if she would just shut up about it. Evidently, she went to a movie, and I don't know what movie it was, but she said there was this actress in the movie, and in the movie, the woman's name was Sandra Kay. So she liked that name, and my mother says, well, okay, then you can name her Sandra. If it's a girl, you can name her Sandra Kay. And that's how I got my name.
Sandra's a good scout. That's all the hell there is to it. I mean, I think she's a great gal. I really believe that. If she's your friend, you've got a good one. And if she's not your friend, get lost. By all means, get lost.
We very rarely went a week, 2 weeks without seeing each other when she lived in the area. So, and I didn't like it when she moved. I said, you brought me to this godforsaken place and now you're leaving? So I really missed her after she left.
Many men have tried to split us up, but no one can.
We went on a cruise together in the 80s, and we went to Branson together. We went to Arkansas together. We went to Wisconsin together. We went to Florida together. So we've taken a few trips together, and we always try to see each other at least once a year. And of course, we talk on the phone every week. So you might say we're kind of tight.
We get along great. We're the best of friends and go shopping a lot and talk on the phone at least once a week.
Eva, how long has it been since you've been on a bike? You ever been on a speed bike?
No, I haven't.
But we got on. They took us up the mountain and
They drove you up there.
And then we kept talking about when we get to the bottom of this hill, we're going to go get us some ice cream or something. And we got down there and discovered we didn't have a dime with us.
Who comes between me and my sister? And Lord help the sister who comes between me and my man. Sisters, sisters, sister, don't come between me and my man.
Memorial Day was first observed after the Civil War to honor Union soldiers. And after World War I, it was expanded to include those who died in any military action. For many families in West Virginia, including the Newsoms, the military connection to Memorial Day was largely lost. Instead, it became Decoration Day, the one day set aside to honor all
When Valerie was 3 years old, Buddy had his first surgery. The doctor said that he was probably going to have another one in about 5 years, that he was going to have his valve replaced. I was afraid. I had Valerie, she was 3 years old. I thought if something happened to Buddy, I could support her. But I couldn't support 2 or 3 children by myself. I wish I'd had at least one more. If I could see it in the future and say, well, he'll live to 51, then I probably would have had another child or 2. But I just couldn't see bringing more children into the world and not being able to take care of them. After the surgery, they had him back in this room. Illinois Research was a huge hospital, and I had to follow this line to get back to where he was. I got back there, and I looked at him, and I thought, he's dead. He was as pale as, he was real pale, you know, like he was dead. And he had all these tubes coming out of him and all this stuff, and I thought, well, I'm going to touch him and see if he's warm. I touched him and he moaned, and I thought, oh God, he's alive, you know. But that's real traumatic for somebody 23 years old, 26 years old.
My dad, I remember he was always a kidder, always joking around with me, always hitting me in the back of the head, always joking with me, always just giving me crap all the time. And actually, I think he was a little more lenient than my mother, even though when I got in trouble, he was the one that I got in trouble with. He was a hard worker and fun to be around when he wasn't mad at me. He loved to build cabinets and furniture and gun cases, and he built some cabinets for my room one time and painted them all blue and pink. I had these blue and pink cabinets in my room. Took up almost my whole room. They were so big. But he liked to do that stuff. He was good with his hands. I remember my first car was a Maverick. It was a lovely thing. He took a paintbrush. It was rusting at the bottom. So he took a paintbrush with brown paint and painted the bottom of this Maverick with a paintbrush. I was kind of embarrassed to drive it after he did that. You know, he did anything to help me out. He loved me. I loved him. We miss him.
I kind of look at Harold as a surrogate father, because Harold was just enough older than me as to when he was 13 years older than me, so when he got to be a teenager and old enough to do things, and I was still little, he would take me with him. I don't know how many times he took me fishing. He'd let me sit on his lap and drive the car. He bought me my first tricycle, my first scooter. And that's why I was so upset when he married Fanny. I didn't want him to leave home. I wanted him to stay there forever because he was so good to me.
Harold was a good guy, but he had his own schedule. And you didn't know whether he was going to be carrying a squirrel or a jackrabbit under his coat, you know, going hunting. And I used to ask him, I said, what the hell what are you looking for? Something to eat.
Loved to fish. I remember that. Loved to fish. He was so laid back, though. He just seemed so laid back. I don't know how he was with his own kids.
But he was a good guy. And my being several years and a few pounds lighter than him, I didn't give him any hard times. But he was a good guy, and if he could do anything for you, he would always do it, except let you drive the car.
I would tell her sometimes, that's an old little Harley bug. I said, you'd throw us all in the river for Harold. And she'd say, I want you to listen to you. You know I love all my children. I says, I'm sure you do, but you love Harold more.
Beans every day. Yep, beans and cornbread every single day. 5 days a week we'd have beans and cornbread. She could wear a snake out. We had plenty of snakes up on the hill at Stallings. And she'd get on one and she'd take a hoe after it. She'd stomp it with the hoe and stand on the hoe. And by the time she was done with the snake, there wouldn't be anything left.
Fanny was a lot of fun. She was a lot of fun and very loving, and both of them were.
Yeah, must have been a beautiful baby. Must have been a hip little child. You was only starting to go to kindergarten. You must have drove the little child's wild. When it come to winning blue ribbons, must have showed the other kids out. I could see the judge's eye when they handed you the prize. Bet you made the cutest bow. You must have been a beautiful baby. Baby, take a look at you now. You must have been a beautiful baby. Must have been a soulful child. You was only starting to go to kindergarten. You must have drove the little sprouts wild. When it come to winning blue ribbons, must have showed the other kids out. I could see the judge's eye when they handed you the prize. Bet you made the cutest bow. You must have been a beautiful baby. 'Cause baby, take a look at you now. 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 Yeah, must have been a beautiful baby. Must have been a hip little child. You was only starting to go to kindergarten. You must have drove the little child's wild. When it come to winning blue ribbons, show the other kids I could see the judge's eye when they handed you the prize. Bet you made the cutest bow. You must have been a beautiful baby. 'Cause baby, take a look at you now. 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 Must have been a view.
That you travel on, there's one day here and the next day gone. Sometimes you bend, sometimes you stand, sometimes you turn your back to the wind. There's a world outside every darkened door where blues won't haunt you anymore, where the brave are free and lovers soar. Come ride with me to the distant shore. We won't hesitate to break down the garden gate. There's not much time left today.